All right, let's get curious about knowledge, knowing, and the question, what if people didn't know anything? So knowledge. Knowledge can be defined as justified true belief. So if you have a thought and you're wondering if it's knowledge or not, you can ask yourself 3 questions. 1, is this thought a belief? 2, is this thought true? 3, is this thought justified? If you answer yes to all 3, you've got a little nugget of knowledge. So the first question is pretty easy to answer. A belief is just a thought you think is true, regardless of if it's true or not. For example, I believe the earth orbits the sun, and I believe there's a civilization of mole people at the center of the earth are my beliefs, if I believe them to be true. Question 1, done. So the second question, maybe not so much. But be careful. The next 2 questions in the process of testing of what we think we know as being true or not are a little harder. Truth doesn't depend on what people think. A thing is either true or false, regardless of whether or not a person believes it to be true or false. Well, there are a few weird things with logic and quantum mechanics, but we'll leave them out for now. Anyway, how do you know if something is true or false? You might know it is true if it's a thing you can see. So for example, these powders explode when lit because when I light them, they explode. I can run an experiment and see with my own eyes. You might be able to deduce it as true if the thought is based in logic. For example, 1 + 1 = 2 because that's how math works. You also might hear someone you trust say it's true. For example, your teacher tells you that America used to have slaves. But how certain are you of any of these things? This is where we get into justification. To be justified in a belief, you have to have enough evidence that a thing is true with enough reasonableness. So again, we go beyond just, well, I think this or somebody told me. We need actual evidence to prove it. So your teacher tells you that there are mole people at the center of the earth. At first, you believe her because she tells you other things you know to be true. But later on, you ask other trustworthy people about the mole people. Turns out, they don't think there's anyone down there. You then study geology. You read about how the earth works, and you learn about the molten core. In other words, you're chasing your curiosity to learn and to discover more, regardless of what people tell you, and sometimes even because of what people tell you. And now you've discovered more about geology and what's at the real core of the earth. Now you have more evidence that there is no one, not even mole people, living at the center of the earth. You would now be justified in not believing what your teacher told you about mole people because you have more evidence against her statement than for her statement. So again, now you've been able to justify a new belief that there are no mole people because you couldn't find any justification for a previously held belief that there were mole people at the center of the earth. So how do you make sure your beliefs are properly justified? How do you make sure your beliefs are true? Do you do the things you know stand up to this test? So in other words, have you tested many of your beliefs before? Or do you just assume they're true? If you're pretty sure about your beliefs, is that really you knowing? So in other words, what if it's a good idea that whether we know something or not, back to the question, what if people didn't know anything? What if it's a good approach to take as if we don't know anything? Because if you don't know anything, then you're constantly searching for the truth. And if you're constantly searching for the truth, you're also working to justify those truths and those beliefs. Now, an activity in the book that you can do with this is just test your knowledge. In a journal or a notebook, write down 3 things you think you know. Now, go through each of these things and write what your belief is, how you know it is true, and how you are justified in believing it. When you're writing how you know it's true and how you're justified in believing it, don't just say, well, my teacher told me. Write out a few sentences about how you know, that it's true, right? What other things do you know that led you to thinking your belief is true? So this is just take 3 things. They could be big things, they could be simple things, but write them out what you think. I believe this, this, and this, and then dive deeper and really investigate why you have those beliefs and make sure that you can justify them. And if not, how do you need to change them to find justification so that you know they go beyond beliefs to truth? Well, one thing I do hope is true is that you keep healthy and stay curious.